welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you my April wrap-up. In April, I was able to read 8 things, 4 novels, and 4 volumes of manga, so pretty balanced. I don't think I've been that balanced in my reading as far as manga and novels in quite a while. I tend to read more volumes of manga, but I have been trying to get my library borrows under control recently. I have had several books out from the library, and a lot of it has been manga. We've been slowly making our way through that stack, and so I'm doing pretty well right now. I really want to get to some of the manga that I actually own, and they are stacking up. So I really need to get to them, and I really want to read several of the series that I have bought. So yeah, that's my plan for that in the future. Anyway, let's talk about the books I read in April. The first book I completed was City of Bones. You all know what this is about. It's the first book in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I read this first one shortly after it came out and never continued to the rest of the books. Not because I didn't enjoy it the first time, but because I kind of got caught up in other series and other books, and I am not one to read series until it's mostly out, and I don't know why. This one just called to me at the time that it was out, and I read it and I enjoyed it a lot, and then the next book didn't come out for a while, and I just never got back to the series. So anyway, after that long explanation, I ended up picking up a copy of the audio book from Overdrive through my library. Since it was a reread, I wanted to experience it in a different format. So the version that I was able to borrow was the one narrated by Mae Whitman, and I really enjoyed her presentation. I thought she did a really good job, and overall the experience was enjoyable. I think when I first read this book, I gave it 5 stars. This time around, I gave it 4 stars. I've been exposed to this story quite a bit since I read it the first time. I watched the movie adaptation, and I am watching the TV series adaptation currently, and I enjoyed both of them. I'm really glad that I revisited this book, and yeah, really enjoyed it. I hope I can get to the next one soon, but I know it's not going to be in May, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why I know I won't get to it in May at the end of this wrap up. But yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So the next book I read was the 5th book in the other series, and that is Etched in Bone. This is by Anne Bishop. And this is a book that I had anticipated for a while. I completely inhaled the first 3 books in this series 2 years ago, and have just enjoyed it immensely. And this book is the last book in the Lakeside Courtyard arc, I guess you could say. Arc is kind of a manga term, but this one does wrap up the story of the characters that we meet in books 1 through 5. And so the series is not ending, it's continuing in a different area, so we're going to have different characters but the same world. Anyway, I loved this book. It was everything that I had hoped for as far as the outcomes of some of the characters' storylines and such. This one, I felt focused more on family. Each book in this series has some sort of mystery aspect to it, and this one was no exception. But I feel like the overall tone for this book was more about family and what you would do to protect someone you love, what family kind of looks like, different visions of what family is and what can make up a family. It also takes a look at how far you'd let a sibling or child push you before you do something about it. This story does bring in a unsavory character, and with this unsavory character comes some unsavory vocabulary. There were a lot of instances where he just spouted foul language, and that kind of made me cringe a little bit. I'm not used to a lot of foul language, and I kind of feel like with this character he used it a lot more. Now, I'm okay with foul language, but this character already ticked me off. And having him spout foul language every time he opened his mouth was just too much, I think, for me. But for me, overall, this story was still very enjoyable. I ended up giving it 5 stars, as I did with every other book in this series. It has become a favorite series of mine. I know you've heard me recommend it several times on my channel, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And I do look forward to the next book coming out, I think next year. Even though they're going to be focused on different characters, it's still going to be the same world, and I really enjoy this world. So yeah, 5 stars. If you haven't read this series and do like those paranormal type of books, I do recommend this one. The first book is called Written in Red, and again, it's called The Other Series by Anne Bishop. The next book I read was a Book One Cozy's Club pick, and that was A Ghostly Undertaking. This is the first book in the Ghostly Southern Mystery series by Tanya Caves. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that. I really should go look it up. But this one follows Emily Rains, and she and her sister kind of run their family funeral home. Emma Lee is the one that the story focuses on, and she can see and hear ghosts. She got into an accident a few years back and almost died, and when she was recovering, she realized in the hospital that she could hear and see ghosts. Well, obviously, other people around her can't hear or see ghosts, and when she tries to say something about it, they think she's loony. And so people in the town that she's at kind of think that she has what they call funeral trauma. So when they see her, talking to herself, where she's actually talking to ghosts, they're like, oh, it's the funeral trauma. But she is not comfortable with this new ability at all, and she tries to avoid every situation she gets in where a ghost is like, you gotta help me, I was murdered or whatever. Well, in this one, the business partner / roommate of her grandmother has died, and she's setting up this lady's funeral, and the lady seeks her out, and she's like, I know you can hear me, you gotta help me, I didn't die accidentally, I was murdered. And Emma keeps trying to brush her off, and of course, because her grandmother is this woman's business partner and roommate, grandmother immediately goes on the list of suspects. And at first, Emma is completely convinced that her grandmother could not have done anything to this woman, even though these two women did not get along very well. But then Emma starts seeing bits and pieces of things where it makes her question if her grandmother is really truly innocent or not. I actually really enjoyed this one. This kind of story is, I think, right down my alley. It's a little bit of that TV series Ghost Whisperer, with the being able to see ghosts and help them pass on and all of that. I do plan on continuing, as I did enjoy this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I do want to check out the author's other series. I think she has 1 or 2 other series. Her writing was really easy to read. I really enjoyed the way this story wrapped up. I had no idea who the culprit was, and the outcome was very believable. So yeah, really enjoyed this. 4 stars. Book 1 Cozy's Club pick. If you are interested in reading this, even though this was a prior pick, please feel free to leave your comments or anything you want to discuss about this book in the thread. We do leave the discussion threads up, even though the books aren't the active books of the month. So yeah, I'd really like to talk to you guys about it if you find yourself wanting to read this book. I hope to see you over there in our threads in the Mystery Madness Goodreads group. And the last novel that I ended up reading was actually the very first novel I started in the month of April, and that was The Fellowship of the Ring. This is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. I buddy read this with my friend Lee over at totallee.net. I will link her down in the description box below. You know, Lee and I have read other things together in the past, and we are trying to work our way through this series this year. Unfortunately, like I said, this book took me all month to read. I did absorb a lot of it on audiobook. I listened to the one narrated by Rob Inglis. The cover of that one says that it's the only unabridged recording. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I did borrow it through my Kindle Unlimited subscription. And I think he was also the one that narrated the version of The Hobbit that I listened to in March. But this one just dragged. I have seen the movies. I really enjoy the movies. So when I'm reading a book that is the basis of an adaptation, and I've already seen the adaptation, what I'm looking for are the differences. So with this, I did notice some references to The Hobbit, which I found interesting, especially because I had just read The Hobbit the month before, so those scenes were still really fresh in my mind. But again, with the singing. Oh my gosh. There was so much of it. It bothered me in The Hobbit. It bothered me even more in this one. Now I give kudos to Rob Inglis. If he's the one that came up with those melodies in order to put these verses to melody, good for you. But I couldn't. Every time a song came up, I cringed inside. I told Lee at one point, I wish there was like indications on the audiobook where it says, okay, we're going to sing a song, because then I'd stop immediately. But you may know, you may not know, I listen to the audiobooks as I'm getting ready for work in the morning, and I put all of this on. And so it's not feasible for me to like stop the audiobook while I'm trying to get ready for work and say, okay, there's a song, flip to find wherever I am and read it instead. It just didn't work that way for me. And so the audiobook was about 17 hours and some odd minutes long. I did end up listening to most of it, even though I have this, and I've had it for a long time. This is my 3rd or 4th try to get through it. And I'm glad I actually did get through it this time, and I think the only reason I was able to was because Lee held me accountable. You know, she finished this a week or two before me, and I was just struggling, and I didn't want to give up because I didn't want to let her down, for one, and two, I really want to get through these. I mean, they're such beloved books, but they just don't agree with me. I don't know what it is. I liked it, but it takes a lot of effort for me to get through it. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Again, I enjoyed the movies more than I did the book. I think they did a really great job at adapting this to screen. I will probably never ever read this again. I will stick to the movies if I want to revisit this story, but I'm glad that I did actually get through the book for once in my life. So, seeing as it took me this long to get through this book, Lee and I have decided to take the month of May off from reading the series, and we will continue our buddy read with The Two Towers in June. Okay, and so that brings me to the manga that I read in April. Now, the first 2 volumes that I read, I already mentioned to you in my March wrap-up. Those were Bride of the Water God, volumes 14 and 15, and I will show you the covers because the artwork on this is just gorgeous. So this is volume 14, and this is volume 15. So again, this story follows Soa, who is this girl that you see on the cover of 15, and she has been sacrificed to the water god by her village because they are having a terrible drought, and they think that if they sacrifice a maiden to the water god, he will bless them with rain. Well, Soa ends up not being killed, but she ends up being welcomed into the realm of the water god, and the story kind of follows her relationship with the water god Hebek, who was the character you saw on the cover of volume 14, or that's one of his many appearances. I'll leave it at that. And her kind of navigating being human in a world full of gods. And again, I'll just say that I'm really enjoying this series. I do plan on continuing it when I am able to get the next few volumes from my library. It is being adapted into a Korean drama adaptation, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I ended up giving both of these volumes 4 stars. The next volume of manga I read was volume 17 of Noragami. This one is by Adachi Toka, and oh, it's very white. Hope you can see that a little better. This one follows the very minor god Yato as he is struggling to kind of maintain his godly status. He is growing a lot throughout this story. I'm really enjoying the development of his character. At this point of the story, there is a battle going on between a few of the gods, and it's really, really interesting. I am up to the last volume my library has at the moment. I keep going back to check to see if they've got the next volume every time I go to renew the books that I already have. But yeah, so this one's volume 17. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. And yeah, really enjoying it. Looking forward to seeing more of the battle that's happening with the gods in the next volume when I'm able to get to it. And the last volume of manga I read in April was Fairy Tail volume 38. This is by Hiro Mashima. You know, I've been reading this one for a while. This one follows our guild of fairy tale wizards. Here are some of them on the cover right here. I really enjoy this series. My daughter and I are also watching the anime, and the last time I read a volume, I think it was in February. We still weren't caught up to where we were at in the manga, and they were actually in a filler arc. So we were kind of waiting for my library to get volume 38, and they just never ever had it. So I ended up putting a hold on it to get it transferred from another library in our system, and I was finally able to get my hands on it in April. So in this volume, they are wrapping up the Magic Games, Grand Magic Games. I really enjoyed this arc. It was very exciting, and we get to see several of the other guilds that are in this world, and there's something going on right now in the story where I'm super interested to find out what happened. My daughter and I did catch up to where we are in the manga, so it's kind of, do we watch some more and spoil the next volume, or do we wait? Now I know my library carries volume 39 on quite regularly. There are not a lot of people that are reading this at the moment, so the next time I am able to step foot in my library, I will be picking up a couple more volumes of this series. And so yeah, I think I ended up giving this one 5 stars. It was really, really good. I normally give this series 4 stars per volume, but this one was really exciting. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this series a lot. So that wraps up my reading for the month of April. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or what you thought of them, or if you plan on reading any of these books in the future. I told you I'd let you know why I would not be able to get to the next book in the Mortal Instrument series in May, and that is because May is Asian Pacific Heritage Month. Obviously, I am Asian, and I am also a Pacific Islander by blood. I've got native Hawaiian blood in me, and I grew up on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. So it's kind of really important to me to read Asian authors in the month of May to kind of bring awareness and get myself more familiar with stories of my heritage, or set in places of my heritage. So I'm really interested in reading lots of manga. I am going to allow myself to read a lot of manga in May. Like I said, I do have several series that I have bought that I haven't read yet, so I do want to get through some of those. I have a collection of Asian stories. I guess they're stories set in like an Asian country or have an Asian background, or they are stories that are written by Asian authors. So I'm not good at doing TBRs. I never stick to them. So I just kind of stacked everything together, and I will pick and choose as I please, what I'm feeling like reading at the time. So I'm looking forward to reading these Asian stories, or stories by Asian authors in May. I'm excited. I don't make it a point enough to read stories that I could see myself in, and I think it should be quite a different experience for me. So I hope I am able to bring you some great recommendations for Asian stories or Asian authors' stories in my May wrap-up. If you're interested in seeing what I do pick up in the month of May, without having to wait for my May wrap-up, please feel free to follow me on any of my social media. I will link it all down in the description box below for you. And a plug, if you're interested in some LuLaRoe clothing, I will also link my shopping group down in the description box as well. I hope you guys are all doing great, and until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.